33 years ago today, on May 7th, 1992, comedian Paula Poundstone was the guest on Later with Bob Costas. She was promoting her special on HBO, Cats, Cops, and Stuff. And she and Bob hit it off amazingly. You can tell they could have gone on for 3 episodes. And she did appear on several more Later with Bob Costas shows, a couple in 93, and there might be more. They really could talk well. Paula talked about her high school, talked about being on the road, and probably the best thing for you digital kids, you MP3 phone carrying people, to realize is hearing 2 people that flew all the time talking about the torture of listening to the music provided by the airlines on the in-flight headphones that you had to pay $10 to listen to music or hear the audio of television, unless you were in first class, like Bob, not Paula. I was flying every other week at this point too, so this is what related most to me in this interview. Poundstone is currently on the NPR series Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me each Saturday, and continues to be a very, very, very funny person. Check her out.
Later, the comedian Paula Poundstone is with us. You've seen her on Letterman and the Tonight Show several times, right?
Tonight Show, several times.
Full list of credits here. HBO won an Ace Award for the Cats, Cops, and
Stuff.
Cats, Cops, and Stuff. So I was close.
Yeah.
Cats, Cops, and Stuff won her an Ace Award. How many nights a year would you say you're on the road?
Oh, I don't know. I go out every week. It's less nights now than it used to be. There was a time, just 2 years ago maybe, I would fly home on Sunday and fly out again on Monday. Always had to come home, though. That's vital. I flew home once for 2 hours.
Just for changes of clothes?
To pack and unpack and pet the cats and head out again. I just had the cab wait, I'd be right back.
If those cats are home for weeks on end without their master, there's no telling what they'll do.
Well, people say all the time that they're like away from home, and then if they're gone too much, like the cats do like bad things to their dwelling. Either my cats have always done bad things and I'm just used to it, or they're just used to me being gone, because they don't seem to, they throw up every day, but I don't see where that's a reaction to anything in particular, other than they're like bulimic and just aren't really satisfied with how they look.
Do they, do they at least have the decency to sort of find a place to puke or what?
No, absolutely not. No, in fact, you know what? Now I think in those terms all the time. I was kind of looking at this carpet and I thought, hey, nice carpet, and gee, I couldn't have it.
Stage show than what we see of you on Letterman or the Tonight Show?
Well, Letterman and the Tonight Show are a bit limiting probably for anybody, but certainly for me. You have to stand in a specific place and you have to wait for Johnny or Dave to wave you over, and and I don't really get to talk to the audience very much because it's only 5 minutes, so pretty much the whole thing is like a getting to know you period, and one can't really assume when working on television that everyone has particularly seen me before. Whereas on a stage show, obviously it's longer, but the other thing is a lot of times now people have come out specifically to see me, and therefore they're not going to be sort of thrown. It's just like beginning a conversation where you left off with somebody as opposed to having to start with, hi, my name is,
So there's stuff that works in concert. If you went out, did an hour on stage, and then took the best 5 minutes of that hour, is that guaranteed to work on Letterman or Carson?
No. The best 5 minutes of an hour that I do are 5 minutes spent talking to the audience and reacting from what somebody else says, and it has more to do. It's like if you're in somebody's living room with with your best friends, and you just have like one of those nights of belly laughs, and then you try to tell it at lunch the next day, and somehow people are happy that you were happy the night before, but they're just, well, that must have been very funny then.
What percentage of your stuff on stage is improvisational?
Probably about probably about a third, maybe. A third on a good night, I would say. Again, it's very much just like retelling stuff to, there's certainly stuff I do over and over again, year in, year out. But you know, but again, it's like, you know, it's like retelling a story or an event, and somebody says, "Hey, tell that story again." You know, so it's just like hanging out with friends, sort of. Except for these people paid to hang out. That's the only difference.
Now, until you perfect this notion of bringing an audience into your home, you have no choice but to go out on the road, and that means flying. You like it or not?
A tremendous amount of flying. I don't mind the up and down part. I'm not troubled by, I'm not even a little bit afraid of, like, death or anything. But, although now, boy, they do make it dramatic, I'll tell you. The way they have if you sit in the emergency exit seat, do you know this? You probably, you know nothing of the section I sit in. You're like Mr. First Class, I'm sure of it. But, sometime when you fly, when you get on the plane, just look this way as you go in. Just glance down there and see. Look at
I try not to make eye contact, really. But.
Yeah, you should just take a look. It's a hideous thing to see. The emergency exit row, now they have a very strict policy about who can sit there, and they actually have honestly a card in the seat in front of you that says, if you can't read this, you can't sit here. Which has really been weeding them out at this point. People just raising their hands and saying, I have no idea what this says.
But also if you're physically unable or unwilling to perform any of these functions.
Which is my favorite. And they actually say, they say if you can't perform, you know, you have to open the door in a special way and help people out, essentially. You can't just, you know, grab your own life and go. And they say, if you're unwilling to do this, you know, raise your hand and we'll reseat you, which I just love the concept of that. Just somebody just, you know, I don't want to help anybody at all. I think it's so good for them to be able to express it like that.
Listen, if this thing goes down,
right,
I'm getting out of here, saving my own rear end, and the hell with the rest of you.
It's a certain kind of person. It's sort of Pat Buchanan seating, is what it is. It's America first taken to its most ugly extreme, which is me first. You know, first me, then America, and then the others, which is a beautiful concept.
Now, here's the thing, before we drop this subject, that really annoys me when you're on a plane. Not only do the pilots make announcements, which I, in my humble opinion, consider unnecessary, but invariably, you're sitting there with the headset on, and it'll be like TWA's Sound Machine, and there's one good song out of 20. And right in the middle of that song that you periodically checked on to see, all right, it's the 14th song, they're at 8, they're at 12, here it comes, you're listening to it, you're enjoying it, then the guy comes on and says, ladies and gentlemen, just off to our left, Amarillo.
Amarillo has ruined many a good song. I totally support you in this. I also feel, well, now, apparently they have rules. I was talking to some flight attendants the other day. I had sprayed with some sort of protective thing. And I was talking to them. I hate flight attendants. There, it's been said. I just hate them.
All
and you know
them,
what? They're stewardesses. There, I've said it. I know that there are some good, nice ones. And some good, nice ones have, in fact, been helpful and nice to me. But for the most part, boy, are they evil and wretched.
Experience, honestly, is different than mine. And we must say this because, you know what? I bet a lot of pilots
because
and
you're
flight...
a man.
Well, maybe, but a lot of pilots, and it's not maybe, it's a definite, that part is a definite, but maybe that's the reason why they act the way they do. But a lot of flight attendants watch this show because they have, you know, weird hours and they're up and everything, and then they tell me they watch the show. And generally speaking, my experience is hunky-dory.
Actually, you know what, though? In fact, in most ways in the world, I believe, that most jobs are very, very genderless, and oftentimes I think people sort of cry sex in an area where it has nothing to do with anything. If one more interviewer anywhere asked me what it's like to be a woman comedian, I just think, you know, unless there's something about,
Don't worry about it. I had no intention.
And unless there's something about, like, where you had to tell jokes while leaning against a wall with your body at a right angle and picking up a chair, in which case women would just kick butt. And otherwise, there's absolutely no relationship. But for the most part, I feel that gender has very little to do with anything until it comes to flying. Flight attendants will just suck up big time to men and be incredibly mean. Well, to me anyways. You know, it's amazing some of the stuff that has stuck in my head since high school. Like, for example, hippos are so heavy they can only have sex in the water. Now that's going to come up pretty often, huh? Maybe in that all-important job interview. Well, Miss Poundstone, your credentials would indicate you'd be a welcome addition to IBM, but what do you know about hippo love?
And we're back with Paula Poundstone. You went back to your old high school in Massachusetts, right? Or was it a grade school?
No, high school. I go back to my high school at least once a year and have for many, many years.
So a lot of the same teachers are still there?
Yeah, a lot of them are only like 10 years older than I am. A lot of the ones when I was there, for the people who are my closest friends there, like a lot of them have since married one another, a lot of interdepartmental marriages. Charlie Roop, my biology teacher, married Faye Nisanoff, and they have a child.
And what did Faye teach?
Faye was my math teacher.
So the math teacher and the science teacher?
Yeah.
That's not nearly as radical, though, as let's say, the English teacher marrying the phys ed teacher.
There actually, no, there's been none of those.
That's extreme.
In my junior high, there was a phys ed teacher who married a home ec teacher, which was a thing of beauty. It was so helpful for the women and the men to define themselves. I think it was a natural extension of their work.
It's pretty clear who the feminine and masculine partners are.
Exactly.
Except the home ec teacher was a guy and the phys ed teacher was a girl.
Not in my town.
No?
Oh, no, sirree, Bob. Not in my town. Although, you know, it's funny, I belong to People for the American Way, and I get a lot of their, you know, literature and stuff, and they had sent me a report on censorship in schools in, what was it, I don't know which one I read, 91, 92, I don't know. I guess it was 91. And a lot of the problems that communities have with books in schools, a lot of what seems to upset a handful of individuals, and generally they don't have a system of dealing with it, so it causes big havoc. They get very upset about books that they feel somehow deal with witchcraft. Now, meanwhile, they insinuate witchcraft into the most ridiculous things. One of the things, in Florida, they had one, the head of the PTA and a teacher had written a little play for elementary school kids to do. It was called Quest for the Banjo Man, and it was the story of a little starfish who goes from country to country, I don't know, looking for the banjo man, and therefore meets. A lot of kids could participate. They learn a little bit about the rest of the world. Well, there was a mother in this town in Florida that got very upset because the starfish goes to 33 countries. And 33 times 2 is 66, and 666 is the devil's number. So they were convinced that this was somehow a secret message. And as I read this book about these complaints, I thought it really made me laugh, because in my hometown, in the 7th grade, I took an English course called witchcraft. This is pretty much right on the money there. That was, every now and then my hometown would be really cool, you know.
Your hometown is Sudbury, Massachusetts?
Sudbury, Massachusetts.
Now, how close is Sudbury to Salem?
I believe we had a field trip that year. Listen, Bewitched went there, for heaven's sake. Apparently the people in Florida never got a handle on the Bewitched program. They must have been getting letters all the time, thinking there was some subtle inference there. Huh. I wonder if anybody's really looked into the death of Darren recently.
Well, there were 2 Darrens, so right there you got a conspiracy theory. I think Oliver Stone is working on it, as a matter of fact.
I have a theory, actually, I have a theory that Oliver Stone's not going to live out the year, and that they're going to say it was that same bullet.
Just still ricocheting.
Yeah, it just come to life and nabbed another one. Darn that bullet. Actually, you know what? I have a book, now you mention it, I have a book about the CIA that I was reading, and I lost it on an airplane. I assume I lost it. Though the fact that it was a book about the CIA troubles me to begin with. It was like this thick. It was called The Agency, The Rise and Decline of the CIA, and I'm not even sure how they can write a book this thick about the CIA, because I thought it was supposed to be secret and stuff. But my guess was, I always had said, I used to kid around about it, saying, I'll bet you they never anticipate you're finishing the book. And in fact, it disappeared before I could complete reading it. So something, yeah, one of the Darrens took it.
Would someone drop in the Twilight Zone theme here?
There was something really weird about that, don't you think?
Well, you know, President Bush was once the head of the CIA.
I knew that.
And I know you have a theory, which the CIA might still be interested in, a theory about President Bush and his electability.
I do have a theory about that. You know, the first time he was elected, and I shudder at the thought that there will be a second time, people. The first time he was elected was one of the most, that day was one of the most depressing days of my life. Not just because I didn't want him to be president, although clearly that is the case, but also because it seemed to me that everybody else was pretty darn comfortable with it. Pretty peppy, pretty cheery. And I couldn't figure out how I'd gone that far astray from my fellow man, basically, you know, and I tried to think if there were things that I do maybe that other people don't do that had set us apart, or stuff that other people do that I don't do. And I got thinking about it, I realized, you know, I don't eat nuts at all. And not only do I not eat nuts, but they're always trying to get me to. For example, I'll be on a plane and the stewardess goes by with a little snack cart. I say, no nuts for me, thank you. I fall asleep, I wake up, there's a foil pouch of nuts in my lap. which I find very strange.
Aha! We have here the source of your difficulty with flight attendants, because what do they offer more than anything else? Tasty nuts, cashews, almonds, peanuts, honey roasted in many cases.
And they feel so happy about it. And trying to get them not to give it to you, because they're basically CIA operatives, is one of my theories. Because the other thing is, if you eat like a brownie, for example, I'm a chocolate lover, like the next human being. When I go to, the other day I bought a brownie, and I always check to make sure that there's no nuts in there. I check all four sides. There will not be like one nut on the exterior. And yet you bite in, and what's right in the center? Nuts. Couldn't they be served on the side where you could smush them in? Certainly. But they want them hidden in there. I feel that they're in there to change. I feel that they're in there to change my presidential opinion. So you can see, it's a long way to go, Bob, and I admit that openly, but you can see that there's something very conspiratorial in that.
Well, and these conspiracy theories are complicated, and you have to stick with them before you eventually find, you know, kind of the Rosetta Stone of the whole thing.
Absolutely. Rosetta Stone. What is a Rosetta Stone?
Well, the Rosetta Stone of something is the thing that is the key to the whole riddle.
And you couldn't have just said key to the whole riddle? Had to make me feel a little stupid?
The show's been on the air almost 4 years, and I haven't had a chance to say Rosetta Stone yet, and now it's out of my system.
You know,
and if you have a Rosetta Stone in your system, it's so hard to pass that you just want to get rid of it as soon as you can.
I understand exactly what you're saying.
I have two last questions, and then I'll let you be on your way.
Two last questions. Bob.
You were just getting warmed up? You'd like to stay a while?
Could I?
Yeah. Just settle in.
I'm a little hurt that you'd... You know, I know with the other people you have on your program there's some sort of time limit, but I'm a little hurt that you'd apply that to me.
But I feel that if we go any longer, we'll just have to edit out quality material.
I hate the word edit.
So then why don't you just come back another time, and we'll pick up right where we left off, except for these two questions.
I know you're just saying, why don't I come back so that I'll leave now? And then you're not really going to have me back?
Well, it's not like a date or something.
I know this because, you know, I left my parents' house once, and the exact same thing happened. They changed all the wallpaper in my room.
And you haven't been back since?
No Three Stooges posters on the wall. No, it's a crushing blow.
Wait a minute. You just said something startling. You had a Three Stooges poster. You know the Jay Leno theory.
Yes, that women don't like Three Stooges.
All men love the Stooges,
You know,
no women like the Stooges.
I love Jay, but again, wrong on the gender issue. People are having such a hard time defining what's a man and what's a woman nowadays. I wish they'd just cut it out as a general rule. Every time some comic gets up on stage and says, you know, women do such and such, there are probably half the women in the room that do, and then there's another half that don't, and they're thinking to themselves, oh my God, I'm not a female. And the same thing for men. You know, men, bachelors, don't they live messy? You know, there's some really neat guy going, I must have no sperm at all. There's no relationship between these things. In fact, I have a framed Three Stooges poster over my mantle at home. It's not the most expensive piece of art that I own either. I love the Stooges.
Who's your favorite Stooge?
Carly.
See, now, for me, Shemp. An underrated Stooge.
Huh.
See, I feel bad for him. He's kind of a utility Stooge, because they just slip him in when someone else is missing, but he's an important guy to have on your bench.
Absolutely.
A reserve Stooge.
Well, you know, I believe it was Shemp to whom Mo once said, Shemp said, eureka, about finding something, and Mo said, shut up, you don't smell too good yourself, which was really one of the highlights of my entire life. Shemp actually had a bigger career than the others. Shemp was in a Thin Man movie and a few others. Yeah.
I missed those. Are they available?
Shemp worked.
Paula Poundstone is among many funny people on Comic Relief on May 16th. Now, there were those two questions we never got to, so
Wait,
that's for next time. That guarantees you'll be back.
This guy just said, make it a sincere welcome back. One of the assistants, one of the executives, pardon me.
No, he's my manservant.
One of the tea carriers just said, make it a sincere welcome back. Bob, have you had incidents of no sincerity here on the program?
None that I can recall.
Sheesh. I am blown away. Did you feel it had to be sincere because it was a comic relief thing?
Was that sincere enough for you, pal? Extremely. And it wasn't even a welcome back, because we're at the point where we're saying goodbye. So if the guy can't even keep track of where we are in the program, why should we listen to anything he has to say?
I don't want to go.
But you have to. Here, I'll walk out with you, because we're done.
Bob. All right, take care.
Come on.
It was really nice being here.
Come on.
Thanks for watching Cleveland Live Music. It's awfully bright out here. I'd click on another one of my videos. Quit looking into the sun. Your mother told you not to do that. Please hit the subscribe button. And if you want to support the channel more, there's GoFundMe and Patreon information in the video descriptions. Ooh, ooh!